3,700 years ago lived a girl named Shinuntum. She was born and raised in Mesopotamia, roughly what's now known as modern-day Iraq. Reconstructing the life of someone who lived so long ago is hard, but we know a crucial detail about Shinuntum's story. She was born blind. Today we talk about a very delicate topic, namely disability in Bronze Age Mesopotamia. My name is Sarah. Welcome to The Mists of Time. Shinuntum was relaxing in her parents' backyard while listening to birds singing. She was waiting impatiently because her future was being discussed inside the house. What was going to happen to her? Her parents were negotiating an apprenticeship for her. This was the best way to ensure Shinuntum's future success. The agreement was not to be documented in writing. In these instances, an oral contract was deemed appropriate. This kind of deals were governed by well-known conventions, so a handshake was enough. It was finally time for Shinuntum to leave. She said her goodbyes to the backyard birds, who had been her friends for years. She hugged her father, and her mother gave her a bag containing fresh clothes and bread. Regardless of the epoch, a child's departure from their parents' home is always emotional. Shinuntum arrived at her guardian's home. We have no idea whether it was a royal palace, a temple, or a private residence. What we do know is that bureaucracy was a serious issue in this place. Her guardian wrote these words on a small lump of clay. On the 18th day of the 10th month, they brought Shinuntum the blind girl here before me to learn the art of music. Music and singing have always been part of the human experience. Since time immemorial, we have made music to entertain ourselves, for religious rituals, to commemorate someone's death, and to strengthen our social and cultural sense of belonging. Mesopotamia in the Bronze Age was no exception. Archaeologists unearthed magnificent musical instruments. Texts of sacred hymns and laments were also preserved. This demonstrates how advanced Mesopotamia's musical culture was. Was Shinuntum's case unusual? In the record of the city of Ur, we can find the types of jobs that blind people held at the time. Adults who went blind typically worked in less demanding jobs, like drawing water from wells and canals or milling flour. Children born blind, such as Shinuntum, were frequently launched into more demanding careers, such as fishing, shepherding, ox driving, livestock grooming, dock work, and of course, music. These people could be trained for many years at a young age, reaching a very high professional level in their prime. Blind musicians generally had the status of shirku, meaning they were bound to a temple. They weren't free citizens. They were obliged to serve the temple for the rest of their lives. However, they could not be bought or sold to anyone else. The records contain no information about Shinuntum's life. However, we can picture her starting her training, studying the fundamentals of singing and the techniques for playing the lyre. One day, she may have asked her guardian a question. Why were some individuals, like me, born blind? The guardian knew the response to that question. She was well versed in all of the myths surrounding the world's creation. She then began telling the story of Enki and Ninmah. When the earth and heavens were first created, the major gods could relax and be lazy, while the minor gods worked hard to support them. They worked with no breaks. They constructed canals, moved water, and cooked food. Enki, the lord of earth, was dozing off in the sacred deep waters. One day, the mother of all the gods woke him up. The minor gods could not continue to toil in this way. so she asked Enki to resolve this matter. The Lord of the Earth pondered his options. With the help of the goddess Ninma, he created the humans. On them, Enki imposed to work, so the minor gods could rest. A party was thrown to celebrate. A lot of roasted lamb and beer were served, and of course, the gods eventually became inebriated. Ninma boasted that she was the divine womb, and thus the good or bad fate of every human was solely determined by her will. Of course, Enki, the Lord of the Earth, could not accept being sidelined. As a result, he challenged her. He would find a meaningful role for the humans whom she had cursed. Ninma accepted the challenge. She created a man who could not do any hard physical work, but Enki made him the king's servant. Ninma created a man with paralyzed legs who could not walk. Enki trained him as a silversmith. The goddess created a woman who couldn't have children, but she ended up working as a weaver for the queen. A person who was not entirely male or female was created. Enki appointed them as the king's advisor. Finally, Ninma created a blind man, but Enki made him a musician for the royal court. Despite their disabilities, these individuals were not just able to work, they held prestigious positions in the king's palace. We can imagine Shinuntum smiling as she listened to the story. She finally realized that, despite her blindness, she had a lot to offer society. Her worth as an individual was extremely high. She could not see the world around her, but she was going to be a great musician.